people afterwards have been like, oh, this was really nice. Do I owe you money?
They come in scared of me.
Yeah, they did. They're like, I'm scared. Melanie.
Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh my gosh. What a ride.
I know. It hasn't been that long, and it has been a ride already.
I know. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the podcast, I'm Fine, It's Fine.
Yes. Excited to be here.
Where we talk to artists about trauma and laughter and the balance between it.
Yeah, I think the intersection, I think what we've been seeing is it can be a really useful tool to process and go through something, but it can also be a barrier for us accessing deeper stuff. So it just depends. Everybody uses it different. And what I've learned from comedians, it's a craft. It's how you hone your skills, is by being able to deal with your own shit and then be able to talk about it from a non-triggered state, is how I see it.
Yeah. I love that you see it that way. The way you describe it makes it beautiful. Living it sometimes, I'm like, this hurts. So you make it sound so nice. I think a thing that's covered a lot too, or like I've heard guests so far saying, is like, can you be funny and sad? Mm-hmm. And I think you can. Obviously, you can just be human, but that's something that we're like still.
Well, I would say everyone is both of the, we're multiple things all at the same time. Emotions, it's just, are we accessing it? Or are we trying to shove it down? Yeah.
See, you say amazing things. I think just because of who you are, but also because you're a therapist and you've learned these truths.
Lots of years. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, well, first I was drawn to you because you're on Google and I called you.
Yes. I remember that day. I thought you just wanted me to be a guest on a podcast. I was like, sure, yeah, I do that. And then you start telling me this idea and I was like, oh, co-host. You're like, yeah. I was like, well, I like your idea. I was like, why did you choose me? You're like, well, you called me back. Sometimes I was like, okay, we'll go with that.
But it really did all fit together. I mean, you were one of the only, Trauma Therapy of Nashville was the only trauma therapist that came up, really, when I Googled. And you did hit me back. So that's like a major thing,
That's how I do it.
Yes. What made you interested in this idea?
Well, I mean, it's always, I had to sit and think, like, is this something that's really in the direction and aligned with what I'm doing? And at first I was like, oh, I don't know. And then it was absolutely, it's just talking about real life stuff with people. And we all have some sort of trauma. It's hard to get through life without it. So being able to give a platform and a voice and to talk about it in this unique way, because comedians, like we said, it's so heavily tied to their worth and how they are able, how well they're doing or how they sum themselves up. And it's, we've seen really famous people, Twitch just, that just happened with him. And not that he was a comedian, but he was just this really big personality that everyone's like, he's so happy, and so it can cause a lot of that silence suffering of to really dispel the belief, like you can't be one, you have to be one or the other. You can't have both at the same time. So I just like giving conversation and voice to like our humanness and the way we experience it, because you guys tell your stories very beautiful. I've gotten to come see, and I get to know you guys a little bit, but then I hear you talk about and do your craft, and talking to our guests and stuff. It's really it's just lovely to see how it's just an extension of you. But I think sometimes comedians can think that's the only thing they have to offer.
Yeah, I'm still like, I need to dig in there. I'm excited for more episodes, because I'm still like, I know I have more to offer and that other people do, but I'm like realizing that and actually believing it.
Yeah. And I think the conversations that this podcast is going to create is going to do that for a lot of people, whether you're, a comedian or you're just the funny person in your household, or in your friend group, or you're just a human that like, I need laughter and I can only feel sadness, or, I think it'll create thoughts and conversations for everybody across the board.
I agree.
Laughter is very universal.
Definitely.
And so is trauma.
Yeah, I like that you said trauma is universal too, because I remember one conversation we had where you were like, most people think trauma is like big things.
Yeah.
Like I got in a car wreck or something physical happened to me.
Yeah.
But
it can be, that's typically what we think of. So a lot of people discount their trauma and don't really work with it or deal with it. But that can be very small things, that happen over and over. It could be not having a parent around, or trying to connect with a parent and getting pushed away. These tiny little moments. A school teacher saying something that and the class laughs.
Oh.
Right? I can't tell you. I've processed a lot of those moments with people. So
wow.
It's these tiny little moments. And I've heard trauma described in several ways, but I think my favorite was anything that's not nourishing. Things that have a lasting impact on us, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. But anything not nourishing, I really liked that one, because that gives a lot of permission for people to look at their stuff and to heal.
Yes. Yeah. You mentioned before where you were like, I have to assess if this podcast is something that aligns with what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how you got into therapy? What is it you're trying to do? Like, what's your bag, baby?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's ever evolving. I got into it because my parents were divorced and I wanted to help kids and couples, and I do not work with either now.
Oh my goodness.
So it was that. It was my own stuff and some trauma stuff that I went through. But then as an intern, I started getting all the trauma cases and I loved it. And so I was like, let me go get trained in something that's going to help me with this.
They give an intern trauma cases?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All the time. So that's when I went and found EMDR and got trained in that, which most people are going to know about that one before some other things. But I was like, wow, we can really do some stuff here with these modalities and really digging in. So it's just, my issue whenever I was first training, my supervisor would say, you get there really fast. You understand what's going on, but you got to slow down and go with the client's pace. So I think I grew up and I've experienced my own trauma. So trauma doesn't take me by surprise. It's hard to shock me for some reason. So it just, when you grow up in, around some stuff, it's hard to, that's what you know. So I was good at it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And so I just kind of went from there, started doing a bunch of training, around trauma and looking, and then that's just a huge world to fall into, and it's like we all have it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it gets to the root of things. It's not that one type of therapy is better than the other, but talk therapy only takes you so far. It can't do trauma work because it's in a different part of the brain. And so being able to work in that, I feel like I get to see strong, lasting results for people. I think my favorite part of being a therapist is normally people are getting to me when they've tried everything and they don't know what else to do. They're at the end of their rope. They're like, you're my Hail Mary. Because I do a lot of therapies that aren't just your typical talk therapy. So they're like, I want to try something I haven't done before. And that's normally how they find me. And because they just think they're stuck and that they have to live life the way they have. And yes. I think getting them, letting them see, talking to them first about it and seeing their face light up with this doesn't have to be this way forever. I'm like, no. And then we do these things and we start seeing, I don't focus on the everyday of what they bring in. I'm digging into stuff, and then the everyday starts changing. And it's these little bit by little bit. And so I love the connection and relationship that I get to form and watch them heal. And you're just really empowering people to live the best versions of themselves. So I really I know that sounds like a cheesy little thing, but it really is. It's really cool to see when people start realizing they can experience life a different way. So that's why I like to do it. And
that's awesome.
So
that's a calling, really.
When it was doing this podcast, it was definitely fun. I wanted to be a comedian when I grew up. I was like,
what?
Yes, I did. I wanted to
You've never said this?
Yes, I did. for when I was really little. And then I was like, oh, you have to write it and be funny all the time? I don't know. So I'm a lot funnier in my head than I am out loud. But this gives a platform for, I mean, seeing comedians and laughter and human, like I see when I'm working with clients, sometimes they will laugh while they're telling you they have been assaulted. Some of their deepest stuff, and they're laughing because that happens when they don't know how to feel. They're uncomfortable, and it can be a coping thing. And so you see that across the board, but being able to give voice to this, it felt in alignment of like just trying to help people connect more to, you don't have to be this or that, that it is, you got what you need to heal. So I hope this gives people permission to do that. Yeah.
So I think so too.
Felt in alignment for me.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad it did. That, yeah. Yes. And I think in the podcast, it's already shown that that's happening, because people afterwards have been like, oh, this was really nice. Do I owe you money?
They come in scared of me.
Yeah, they do. They're like, I'm scared.
Yeah. But yeah,
it's been nice. Yeah.
Why don't you share a little bit around what made you as a comedian want to do this?
Yeah. So I've been a comedian performer my whole life. Like I practically came out of the vagina like, yeah, you know. And it's just been my happy place, my home. Like,
you're natural, by the way.
Thank you so
I finally got to see you, and it's wonderful. I know I texted you later and told you this, but I can tell you're doing like what you're meant to be what you're meant to be doing. It's good. It's natural.
Thank you, my friend.
You light up. Like your energy is so like, it's good. So I enjoy it.
Thank you. I feel that up there. I feel like I'm home. So it's really nice. Thank you so much.
It shows.
Thank you. So yeah, that's like, I love it so much. And then growing up performing, I have a single mom, and she was always there for me, like holding it down, taking me to auditions, doing my hair, like doing my makeup, did everything. She was like manager, stylist, you know. And I started to realize as I got older that I really put like a lot of pressure on her. I had a lot of anxiety of like, I need to know everything's okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, through therapy and, you know, looking inside, I'm like, oh, some things happened in my childhood that probably like came from. And it just got to be a lot, because it went from her to my partner. And it was like, after every show, mic, day, I was like, validate me, like, or I can't survive. And I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm not going to be able to do comedy. Yeah. And I love it so much. And so I have to figure this out, because I'm going crazy. Yeah. So I went to therapy and did exposure therapy for, you know, asking for reassurance, which was like, oh, it was huge, but it helped so much. And I felt that spurred me into being like, oh, how much more can I love myself? How much deeper can I go into like being there for me, you know? And so I've been on that path in the past like 3 years, and being around other comedians, it's more normal for people to be like so sad and mean to themselves. Like, you notice it now where you're like, if someone else said what you just said to you, you would be so mad, you know, or sad. And so, and I get this reputation, I think, of people being like, oh, Amber's so positive and like kind, which I love, but I'm also like, oh, but you know, there's work in there. Like, I also get sad and have to work at loving myself. So the idea behind this podcast was like, I want to be in a room with creatives and talk about hard shit and laugh, you know, but get to like be vulnerable, you know, because you see a lot of famous comedians and artists, and you don't see a lot in the interviews. It's like, what are you doing? When's your next show? Da, da, da. And they're just like, da, da, da. You know, you don't hear a lot of the like, it's really hard for me, and I'm struggling right now, and I'm sad. Yeah. You know, because that's really vulnerable and not funny.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think you my experience of you is that you're very authentic. And I can tell you've done work to be comfortable with yourself and in your own skin. And that gives other people permission to do that too, like without you even directly saying it. And I think this podcast is an extension of you giving permission to people for that.
I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Good.
Yeah, I do love when like I give myself a compliment and someone's like, you just gave yourself a compliment. I'm like, yeah, give yourself a compliment, Bob. And they're like, okay. And then, you know, just that feeling of like, let's love ourselves some more. You know?
Yeah, I think we grow up conditioned to, you know, we're not being humble. Yes. I know that was for me, like to think anything positive. I'm being vain if I think I'm pretty. Mm-hmm. If I think I'm doing something good. So for me, one of my core messaging was like, who I am is bad and hurts people, so I can't think of myself good. So taking compliments was always met with self-deprecation.
Yes.
Instead of thank you, right? So, you know, I'll use that with clients sometimes and say, I learned just to say thank you when I received a compliment. And I would feel squirmy inside, but I would just say thank you. And eventually that started a new pattern to where I could say thank you. And the more work I was doing was, well, that was a nice compliment. Maybe I do look nice today.
Yeah.
And then, well, I am. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah. And so what's your just say thank you? Like whatever you're working on or something like that, well, just say thank you. It gives you that space to start doing something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think, I'm hoping, again, these conversations give people that.
Yeah. I love what you said before about like, even if you're not a comedian or an artist or whatever, these conversations are about like, you just see the vulnerability of humans.
Yeah.
And it's a fun time too. Like these we've laughed a lot,
yeah,
learned a lot. So it's for everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been fun because we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
We all have this human experience we have to go through, you know? So it's just neat to hear. And I love working with all the people I get to work with, that everyone has their own unique experience, and just getting to see how they're experiencing this human thing we have to do.
Yes.
My job's really interesting and fun. So this is just adding to it. Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm so excited for this and for more people to listen and for us to just keep having great experiences.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
I'm Fine, It's My Podcast with Amber Autry, and I'm Melanie Reese.
If you have a story you want to share of your own, you can email us at imfinesometimes@gmail.com. And make sure you follow us individually. I am Amber Autry Comedy on all platforms.
And I am Trauma Therapy Nashville on all platforms. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcast. And thanks so much for listening.